My name's Maggie, and I'm here to talk to you about American Beauty, a 1999 film directed by Sam Mendes, starring Kevin Spacey, about a man's midlife crisis and his journey to eventually reclaim his identity right before his death. And I really like this movie, and I had seen it before, but when I was watching it this time, I was thinking a lot more about the writing and the way that the writers and the director came together to create sympathy for really unlikable characters in really interesting ways. And in film, we have something called a stock character, which is a character who's very flat and one dimensional and lacks a certain amount of complexity and depth. And this film really goes through a lot of trouble to break those stock characters and characters who appear in the beginning to be sort of one dimensional and we think we know them. By the end of the film, turn out to be much more well developed characters. So, one great example of this is Kevin Spacey's wife, Carolyn, who's played by Annette Bening. And in the beginning of the film, Kevin Spacey is kind of the underdog, and he doesn't really like his wife. He declares, my wife and daughter think I'm this total loser. And we sort of get this impression of Carolyn being kind of crazy and kind of domineering and very bossy. And I think the best scene to sort of like show what Carolyn's all about is the scene where she tries to sell the house. And she goes through and she methodically and meticulously cleans this house, and she puts so much effort into it. And I find this scene really sad because she's so earnest. And ultimately, she doesn't sell the house. But instead of just allowing herself to feel this kind of frustration and disappointment, she's so hard on herself. And we see her like trying to like stop herself from crying, and she's trying so hard to maintain this appearance of success, which really becomes key, I think, in the end of the film, because I think what Carolyn ultimately comes to represent to Kevin Spacey's character is that materialism and that sort of waspishness that he's trying to get away from. Or like the scene where they're having this moment and it's kind of nice, and he's like, remember the people that we used to be and remember how in love we were. And she says, Lester, you're going to spill beer on the couch. And he's like, it's just a couch. And she's like, it's not just a couch. And it's kind of like, again, that materialism, like she's really invested in all of these things. And he's like, this is not a life. This is just stuff. And she can never really like be in the moment because she's always like thinking about all these other things. And she's always trying to like maintain this appearance of success. And instead of her just being like a really flat, one-dimensional character, we really get to like go into Carolyn's psyche and like see what she's all about. And I think that this film actually like generates a lot of sympathy for her, and I definitely felt like very bad for her at the end, especially after Kevin Spacey's death. But another example of a stock character who gets more explanation and gets more complexity is Mina Suvari character, and she plays the best friend. Her name's Angela, and she's very narcissistic and she's very shallow. And we see her as kind of a queen bee type, who is like really bitchy, I guess you could say. And instead of just leaving her that way, she kind of becomes the object of Kevin Spacey's obsession. And I think what she represents to Kevin Spacey is that youth and the vitality that he has lost. But this film doesn't just allow her to be like this untouched, kind of holy object of his obsession. She really gets humanized, especially towards the end, where they have that scene where they're like together, and this is like the culmination of everything that Kevin Spacey has wanted. But he takes a step back, and instead of this film just giving you a really like satisfactory ending where they just get together and like the credits roll and that's it, he sort of realizes like that this is just a child, and that she isn't just like as confident and as sort of pushy as she appears to be. She's actually really fragile, and she's actually like really insecure, and I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And she's much like Carolyn, like got this facade, and this film like really goes through a lot of trouble to break those molds. And so that's like one thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, and I hope you get the chance to see it, and I hope you like it, and I'll see you next time.